Yeah.
We're live. Welcome to the Red Couch Theology podcast, where you find out that Alex almost was in a movie.
That's such an exaggeration. So, here's what it was. Weird way to open the podcast, I suppose.
It is a weird way.
And actually, nothing actually happened in the end. There was a movie shooting in town in Denver that was looking for extras, and then specifically looking for some roles with a couple of lines that could do like accents. And I'm like, you know what accent I can do? I can do the Cockney Barman accent. So anyway, this was back in July. And it was all set to I'm at least going to be an extra. It was an indie film because, as you may know, you can't be in a real Hollywood movie without having like a WGA, like dues paid and stuff like that. You can't. Like an indie film can become big, but they go nuts if they give speaking parts to people that haven't put in their hours as silent characters and all those sorts of things. It's all graduated to But I was like, oh, I'm doing it. And they were offering $50 a day or something ridiculous if you were an extra. It was probably a bit more than that, but then they actually were paying better if you were the speaking role. So I was all set to go, and then I was going on vacation the day they were filming. I think the last day of filming was the day we left, and I was like, oh, this is just absurd.
Not even worth it.
I'm not going to be able to go and say, hey, I really want to do this fun part in this junky indie movie, but I also need a day off. So
when you're asking for vacation days for a role that you don't even have yet, it's probably not a good sign.
Yeah.
They're like, this is not working out well for us.
Can I get my birthday off? I just want to check, do you guys give,
They're like, we're paying you $100 for a week.
And the dental and the medical, is that included?
Wow.
So anyway, it was just this fun idea. But
all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do something slightly different here to kick off our episode. And tell people what we're going to talk about now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Or at least what I think where we're going to start. One, I'm going to ask you to finish your sermon because Alex preached for 17 minutes on Sunday. That's got to be a South Fellowship Church record. It's a sign of extreme holiness and faith in the glory and majesty of God and the Holy Spirit.
Do you know what? I don't think he's a listener to the podcast, but you know who always used to give a good review of short sermons? Mike Costas.
Yeah, he likes short.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, yeah. That's right. He's like, where's the rest of my sermon?
Yeah. He come out, you owe us today. What is she,
Yep.
And you're like, whoa.
So the plan is to let Alex actually share a couple of the things that he had to cut in order to, because I took extra time in worship, and then we honored his family for being at South for 5 years, and that took a little extra time. And then some transition stuff took some extra time. The passage, there was just a bunch of things that took all said and done. And he really wanted us to do the closing song. So he went 17 minutes for y'all. What a kind
And we still
soul.
Ran over by 5 minutes or so.
I know. All right. So the first agenda is to just get a little bit of the nuggets that he had to cut. The second one is a theological question I have here, which is, why isn't the gift enough? So in order for this question to make sense, you're going to have to give us a little bit of a review of the message, because you talked about the gift versus the giver.
Yeah.
Why do we need more than the gift or the assurance of salvation? Isn't salvation sufficient? Why do we need to worry about the giver when the gift of salvation should be all,
interesting.
So that one.
My guess is I don't have any of the keynote stuff on here.
Perfect. No pressure. You work on that, and I'm going to tell them what else we're going to.
Okay.
I'm going to give all sorts of promises that you can't fulfill. All right. So, and then the last question is, what are the everyday implications of being so loved by God that He sent His Son, and how might this shape our response to God when we fail and have doubts? So, in other words, okay, cool. You said Sunday, God loves us, and you tried to convince us of that in a couple different ways. Why does that is that transformative, or is it just meant to help us feel gooey inside? So those are some of the topics we're going to be covering today on the show. I'm trying this thing where we tell you up front so that we don't ramble for 20 minutes.
Wait, you don't think we should ramble?
We already rambled. We started the show with you going on a movie set, so we rambled plenty.
I don't know what that looks like.
In fact, most of our listeners are probably all long gone because of that.
People didn't want to hear about my
acting career.
Yeah.
All right. So could you start by sharing some of the things that you had to cut on Sunday?
So I had wanted to talk a little bit about what you do with familiarity, because this is the most familiar passage of all the passages. So
God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like the weird thing about familiarity is it can destroy some of the most beautiful things. You end up focused on things that that are like front and center, and miss things that are beautiful and present and familiar. Just because we're busy people, I would guess. There's a great little image that I saw not long ago of like the reason that kids are happier than adults. And there was a dad and his son sat on the bench. And his dad has like a thought bubble with all of the different things that are bugging him, like work and money and all these different things. And then the kid has a thought bubble, and the thought bubble is him and his dad on a bench. And I was like, that's just brilliant. Like the thing that is occupying the kid is what's going on, is his dad and the bench and him together.
Yeah.
Whereas the dad is present in all sorts of places. So just in life, we tend to like struggle to be present in the spaces that we're in and to value the things that we have. Like marriages end because we get familiar with each other. We end up forgetting like the beautiful gift of
the old
someone who loves you and you love them. And so, and that's why you hear all these stories of like people that tried to find something new because they're like, this thing's missing the spark, and actually found like just loneliness, like just emptiness.
Yeah. So familiarity breeds contempt.
That's the Dallas Willard quote.
Is the quote.
So as well. So the original quote, the proverbial quote is familiarity breeds contempt. Dallas Willard said familiarity breeds unfamiliarity. So the more you're around it, the less familiar you actually become with it. And so in the context of your sermon, we're talking about John 3:16. Yeah, as a passage.
It's so familiar. You see it on people's faces at football games.
You do. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so familiar that like the weight of like the God of the universe, the creator of heaven and earth loves you.
Yeah.
And you're like, yep, cool, got it.
Yeah. So so his thesis was like, the more you say something, the more it becomes abstract. It gets lost in some kind of like, so you can say umbrella 20 times. And the first time you say it, you picture an umbrella, and you probably picture a context with you in rain. And the 20th time you say it, you actually have lost any sense of like, this is a thing. You're actually more for, this is a weird word that I'm just, it's almost just disappeared from your front and center imagination. So I do think that was a thing that I wanted to get to with John 3:16, like this invite to refocus on it, to be present in it and to experience it. Again, no time for that really. Just
you just like mentioned it in passing and then flew through. Yeah.
And so that was a piece that I felt like I skipped. In general, I think I just moved very quickly. There was no time for repetition, no time for, I think sometimes you'll say something in a sermon, you're like, I need to say that again.
Yeah.
In a slightly different way. Like I'm going to.
Like every time I say everything. That's why my sermons are so like, they are not tracking with the way I planned on saying this.
So I'm either going to repeat it so they have time to sit with it, or I'm going to
illustrate it,
or I'm going to say it a different way. Like there's just certain times where you like have lost the right side of the room. We're all asleep right now.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have time for any of that.
That right side of the room.
It's always the right side of the room.
Yeah,
always stage right.
So this reminds me of the whole life familiarity thing reminds me of a Bluey episode.
Oh yeah. Well,
so
anytime you got a Bluey
episode, this is episode, evidently it's season 3, episode 5, the Born Again one.
Got it.
Or Born Yesterday episode.
I know it well.
Such a great episode. And here's the premise of this particular episode is Bluey and Bingo ask their dad if he can pretend like he was born yesterday, because he uses this phrase, and he's like, I wasn't born yesterday, kids. And they're like, ooh, that's a fun game. Can you pretend like you were? And then the whole episode he does, and he like just leans into it full on. And he's like, in this episode, if you look on this, if you're watching, you can see him like looking at a leaf, and he's just like overwhelmed by the beauty of a leaf.
Look at this. This is amazing.
We like the sky and the clouds and food and everything. Like he just pretends like everything is new. So there you go.
Yeah. Magical.
Pretty cool.
But that in practice is hard to do. You get into this habit, especially if you're right now in that phase of like young kids or something like that. Someone once said the years go fast, but the days are long.
Yeah.
So if you're stuck in that, like, I've just got another thing to do. I've got another thing on the list. Like, I got into bed the other day and I said to Laura, like, well, another day. And she's like, yeah, I wonder how you ever live a life that doesn't like be just another day. And of course, like I went to work. I love my job. I love the people I work with. I love my family, love my kids. But still, like we got up in the morning. We all dashed off at different points. Like we're literally rushing out the door in multiple sets of people. Laura takes the older kids and she works at that school. And I take Leo and I take him to preschool. And so you're just literally like, okay, split. And then you get back and
you're
eat
weary.
Dinner. You put the younger kids to bed. You maybe hang out with the older kids for a bit, and then you all go to bed. I mean, I think last night we got our oldest kids to bed like 10:30.
Yeah.
So it just like life can be like that.
So then, okay.
So
how do you combat that?
Which is a great question. Like, and I don't know that there's easy answers beyond space for contemplation and gratitude. Like so, I think those are two things that the church has valued all the way up until probably the 20th century. And even in the middle of the 20th century, if you look at the slow pace people lived life at compared to today, it's a different world. Like, I mean, extracurricular activities in the middle of the 20th century. Actually, go to the 80s. For me, I was on a soccer team for a while where I practiced once a week and played a game once a week for 3 months of the year. And now you get to today where like
practice every day.
When I coached soccer,
games.
It was a 5-day-a-week thing. And then it was a 6-day-a-week thing when we were in the playoffs. So we would just go. We're sneaking in extra practices wherever we could. So even go back 40 years, 30 years, it's just a slower way of being.
So maybe this is one of the powerful parts of spiritual practices is spiritual practices are a tool that help you kind of actually appreciate the gifts of God again.
Totally.
Because like God's like lavishing you with good and beautiful moments, and we're so distracted and familiar that we don't even enjoy the gift of God.
So and that's why spiritual disciplines are broadly active or passive.
Yeah.
Like there's some that help you to
talk
do
about
things.
that.
Well, there's some spiritual disciplines that actually help you to do stuff. They actually are training your body to become more like Jesus. And then there's some that are passive. And those ones are designed to stop you relying on all of the things that you rely on to convince yourself that you're happy. So when you give away money, you remind yourself that building wealth isn't primarily a wonderful spiritual activity.
Yeah.
Like giving it away is actually like, so you're not, I was joking with someone. It's a joke I've made before. So some of you be like, that's just an old joke. But I was chatting to a friend yesterday who was thinking about doing something like financial. And I said, I think, I've always wanted to start a TV show that is, instead of keeping up with the Kardashians, is staying back with the Waltons. Like, it's like,
I'd watch that show.
We're just like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Staying back with the Waltons.
Because, we've never been particularly fussed about all of the sense of we've got to do this, we've got to do this. And I don't know that we're richer for it. Like, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But we've broadly told the kids, if you want to do an activity one at a time, and we'd rather you did it together. So in the spring, they're all doing horse riding, except Leah. So they'll all be doing a 3-hour activity together where they all go off and they're doing the same thing. And we're like, we would rather do that than chase you like from one activity to another. So I think, one, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what your family does. It's just something to be aware of, that it may give you a sense of rushing everywhere. And 2, you might be chasing a dream that even when you get on the verge of it, may be a dream that you don't actually want your kids to live. Like I actually heard Ben Affleck talk about this, the actor. He said, like, I really don't understand people's desire to be rich and famous. He said, I could actually get on board with them wanting to be rich. That gives you some ability to do things, both good and personal dreams.
Yeah.
But he said, everyone I know who wants to be famous doesn't know anyone who's been famous. Because the cost of being famous is huge.
Yeah.
So if the dream is I want my kids one day to be somebody everybody knows because of their incredible ability, man, like spend a day knowing, like with everyone knowing you and what you do. Like even pastoring is a little window into that. Like little things that you do. Like I have pastor friends that have had people critique them for like the clothes they wear and the cars they drive and everything. Like you're always on view in some ways to a small community. Imagine that times by whatever. So passive activities remind us maybe you don't actually need the things that you think you do, and you actually get to step back a little bit. You get to do nothing so that nothing can be filled with something. Silence is a passive activity. It actually removes distraction so that maybe God can speak.
And so it turns the volume down of the of the normal.
Yeah.
So that the volume of the blessings and presence of God can be turned up.
Absolutely. So there's one writer that claimed pretty strongly, and I would tend to agree with this. If you want to experience God in a way that is extraordinary, there's 2 ways. And one is suffering and one is contemplation.
Yeah.
Like one is silence, like contemplative activities. So if you are suffering, almost is like a cheat code to experiencing God's presence in dramatic ways.
Get yourself some suffering.
But it comes at the incredible cost of whatever you lose and the pain of losing that.
Yeah.
I heard someone talking about losing a child the other day, and just the sudden waking and angst and anger but God's present in it in a surprising way.
Yeah.
And so none of us would wish that on ourselves or our friends. And so contemplation is the long way, but it usually takes a serious commitment of no, I want God and nothing else.
Yeah.
And so you find times to experience that. So
there you go.
I think somewhere for me, the invite was supposed to be to, what does it look like to re-embrace this in new ways?
Yeah. Yes. To cast a vision for like, okay, God loves you, but how do we actually start to actually feel that again in a fresh way? Yeah.
So I did a benediction at the end of this week that to me was an intriguing passage to put side by side with this, because you've got John 3:16, for God so loved the world.
Yeah.
He gave his only son. And then I read Ephesians 3, one of Paul's letters as a benediction.
Yeah.
And in that one, he says, I pray that you would have the power to understand the love of God.
It's one of my favorite passages.
Oh, it's one of mine. Like every time I read it, I'm like, it's brilliant. But I'm always intrigued by what he means by power. Like, because on one hand, like power is like, I think, it's dyno something in Greek.
Dunamos.
Isn't it? Yeah, dunamos. Is it dunamos? Dynamos. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Look at us with our pseudo-Greek.
Yeah, so we've got, where does it start?
17.
Prayer for Ephesians. So let me dwell in your heart's faith, power. So it's, dunamai. Yeah.
So it like, on one hand, that can be physical strength, and on one hand, it can be spiritual strength. So I always wonder, like, is he praying that God would just give you that power, or that God would give you the strength to spend the time of contemplation of, like, It's
probably all of the above, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but I think the part of the reason the text is so beautiful to me is that he has to pray this prayer. Like, he's like, you're literally not qualified to absorb this love.
Yeah. Like, and then he gets to the end and he says, even though it's so great, you can never really understand.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to pray this majestic prayer so that you can have even a chance of scratching the surface of the wall of love that is coming your way.
But then I also always feel like the next part really is illuminative as well, because you've got all this part where Paul says, like, I pray that you would understand the love of God, the height, the depth, the width.
Yeah.
Even though it's so great that you can never really understand it. And then he says, and now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we would ask or think. Like, so even when we've asked to experience the love of God, God is able to give us experiences of it in ways beyond our imagination. And so I think the most grounded people that you meet are people that have sat in that space of what God's love means and have allowed it to heal every space in which they have felt unloved, uncertain of themselves, lacked value, all of those different things. Somewhere in the middle of that, we're invited to experience the love of God that is beyond any of those things.
So I feel like in one sense, we're starting to answer the first question, which was this. And maybe remind us why the question's phrased this way, because you use some language in the sermon that informs why this question was written this way. Why isn't the gift enough? Why do we need, or should we want, more than assurance of salvation?
Well, I think for the same reason that in everyday life, actually often who gave a gift is more central to its value than the gift itself. Like, I can remember some extraordinary gifts I've got from people, and those people have become forgotten in my life. Like, people that have given me wonderful things and I don't speak to them anymore. I don't, and for the reason that in my eyes, the gift was valuable, but the person was only valuable because of how they were tied to the gift. And as that gift like disappeared in my eyes, someone gave me a car when I was about 18.
Nice. That's a good one.
And it wasn't an amazing car, but I didn't have one. And they said we were going to sell this car for probably a couple of $1,000s in today's money. And, they said, but if it was for you, we would just give it you. They were friends of my parents, and Bola and Taiwo Ola.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great name.
Family from Nigeria. And so they gave me this car, and I was just staggered. Signed the papers with them, was very thankful, and then I don't think I ever spoke to them again after that. But the car was valuable, and then the car broke down, and it got scrapped, and I got a few dollars for it, and the relationship between me didn't change because the value was in the gift. I think this is where I'm trying to piece this together. And then there's other gifts I've had that are super important to me, regardless of their monetary value or not.
Yeah.
Because of who gave them to me. I've got sitting on the shelf next to where I read my Bible and other books in our one of our living areas. It's this little metal turtle. It's just, it's got a head that just bobs around, and you can move its feet, and it just sits there. And if you push it, it'll kind of bob around. It's probably made 100 years ago or something, but it was my grandma's. And she gave it to me not long before she passed away.
Yeah. And
that thing, I would be heartbroken to lose. Now, if I outside of my grandma if I'd walked past that in a rummage sale like we had at church, I would probably never have picked it out.
Yeah.
But because it's tied to her, it means a lot. Now I think you can have a gift that's extraordinarily valuable, like the
salvation.
Gift of salvation. And then you can have a person who's extraordinarily valuable because of their love for you, their care for you. And that's a wonderful thing too. And then you couple the two together. And I think in this instance, we have both a gift that's wonderful and distinct and valuable, and the gift of knowing the giver. That's to me the extraordinary addition that Paul sketches out when he says, no, you weren't just given a gift. You were adopted as an heir.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you were welcomed into a family.
Okay.
So like gifts are fine, but the gift of a family, to be welcomed into something, to belong to something, that's extraordinary.
Yeah. And actually, like theologically, if you think about it, you can actually, the main thing you are saved into, you're saved from a separation from the giver. And you're saved into deeper, intimate relationship with the giver.
Totally.
So that is salvation.
And this is
not like, I think that this is one of the brokennesses of becoming overly obsessed with heaven and hell as locations and as experiences.
Yeah, sure.
Not because they're not things, but because it distracts us from what we're actually saved. Like the reason hell is the worst is because Jesus is not there. Yeah. And then the reason, and we could get into some deeper theological things about it. Yeah.
Picture a salvation which looked something like this. Okay, you're fine, but I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, like now you have a mansion and you're going to be safe for all of eternity.
That's why true reconciliation stories are extraordinary, because they remind us of God's work for us. That's why the prodigal son story is so valuable, because it's not, I'm going to provide for you. You get to be a servant again. It's find him a ring, get him a cloak, and let's celebrate together.
Yeah, and if I've heard people say things about heaven and hell where like, well, if heaven is like this place where you're like playing a harp in the clouds, I'd rather go to hell because it's like this ruckus, dark club party down there, right? It's an impression. It's this impression that like maybe media and Hollywood and Dante's Inferno and all this conglomeration of other things have given us the impression that hell is this like insane, like dark party, but at least it's a party.
The most hilarious view I've ever seen is on The Simpsons, where like Homer is in hell in some vision and is being tortured by having to eat all the donuts. And he just eats hell out of donuts. and he's just so happy. And this demon that's like, have another donut. He's like, wait, what? Just
this is the best.
All the donuts. But that's like that. You're right. That's the weird twist that we have. So in actual fact, the most correct view seems to be eternity with the source of light, and the other option is eternity, at least in one view, outside of the presence of the one who is behind all light.
Yeah.
Like, so if light is God's gift to the world, both spiritually and physically, then one is outside of where there is darkness and gnashing of teeth. And there's whole like books written on what gnashing of teeth actually means. But it is the It is primarily, it seems, the distress of being in the place of darkness.
Yeah.
So like, and we see that all the time. Like, you know, my kids have this conversation with me all the time about their relationship with the dark.
Yeah.
Like Jude, who's very exact on what he wants, you know, that's part of his gift, will say to me, if I shut the door so that the room's dark so we can go to sleep, he'll always say to make sure you open the door when you leave. Like, I don't want it to be dark. I'm okay with you here in the dark with me, but I want the door open so if I wake up, it's not dark.
Yeah.
So like he's got this very distinct
Very
sense
specific.
of like, yeah. And so you see with him, like, well, what comforts him? Light and presence. He wants my
presence is more important than light.
Yeah, darkness is fine if God is present. But when God is the you know, like, I don't know if I think I had to skip it. I had the James, did I read the James 1 passage? I can't remember. I think I just rushed over it.
I think you did rush over it.
But that passage is another one that ties into, like, you know, the Father of lights from whom all good gifts come. And he's
so
actually
like
the Father of the heavenly light.
when I was younger, as a kid, you know, follower of Jesus, or you know, prayed the sinner prayer or whatever. But when I thought about heaven, I was like, well, heaven's going to be cool because it's going to be mansions and I'll get basically all the stuff I want. But as you age and you get some of the stuff and you realize that stuff is empty and no longer gives happy because familiarity breeds unfamiliarity and all these things, right? All the things we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Then you start to say, well, there's got to be more than just the stuff. Yeah. The stuff is a means to an end. It isn't an end in itself. When you're a kid, sometimes you think the stuff is an end in and of itself, because getting a new thing, like I used to be like a tech junkie, and I would just get so excited about getting the next phone or getting the next computer.
And now you just got one. You don't even care.
I don't care. Like, I care that the battery doesn't die on me. My most favorite feature of my new phone is that the battery lasts long.
A gift.
And I am a big tech nerd, and I don't care.
Isn't that incredible?
But what heaven is, more than a mansion or a dirt bike or whatever that I wanted when I was a kid, is the good stuff of life, which is deep, meaningful relationship with others and with the living God. And then it means, like, okay, maybe there's a mansion. Yeah. But the mansion's useless without the people in the mansion.
And I think a lot of people tend to think mansion is it's an okay translation, but what actually the implication is so the story around the Jewish world is that when a son took a bride, and I know you know the story, but for the sake of maybe you don't and you're listening, when a son of a father took a bride or became betrothed, he would say to his betrothed, I'm going to go away for a while. I'm going to prepare a house for you. Yeah. And he would go back to his father's house and he would build
an addition.
And then he would come back and he would take her and he would welcome her into the new home, which was part of his father's home. Now, one day his father would die and he'd inherit the home. Yeah. But this is what Jesus is talking about. Yeah. In my Father's house, there are many extensions. Yep. There are many dwelling places to live. And if it were not so, I would have told you, but I go to prepare a place for you. Yeah. And when I come back, I will take you to myself. I mean, this is bride and groom language. So, like, the invitation is unity with a family. So let me give you a little story that I think explains on a tiny level what this feeling is like. Every year, I go with my family to the beach. Like, we all live in different places, all have our own homes. But every year we go and we live together in this place. You know, we rekindle old relationships. We do things together. We watch movies late into the night, play games, all because we don't have to dash off to put our kids to bed somewhere else. Everyone is in the same kind of places. We sit watching the ocean, the sunset, because it sets at like 10:30 at that time of year. So we watch it. Eat great meals. We eat together. Laugh. We drink wine together. We laugh together a lot. And every time I'm there, about 2 days in, I'll tell myself, I still got 5 days left. Still got 5 days left. And then the next day I'll be like, okay, still 4 days left. There's still 4 days left. 3 days left. Still 2 days left. There's still everything in me is trying to extend this for as long as I can in my brain because I have no desire for it to end.
Yeah.
If you said to me, do you want another week? Done. Taking it.
Yep. And if I knew everything at home was covered
sure.
and the expense was covered, instantaneous, yes.
And if someone said to me after that, do you want another? I'd probably say yes. Now, of course, there's all sorts of humanity dynamics that are in play right now that eventually I might get to a point where I'm like, okay, no, I'm ready to like,
familiarity breeds unfamiliarity.
But it's just a little picture of what it is when you combine the people you love with places you love, all of which are gifts from the Father of heavenly lights.
Yeah.
Who only gives good gifts.
So the thing that you may have experienced all the time here, which is an epic sunset, is nowhere nearly as sweet, and because you're rushed past it potentially. Whereas there, you sit with a people you love, and you actually linger long enough to admire it. You say it out loud to your mom or dad or whatever, and they say, "Isn't this amazing? What a gift!" And
that's why, actually, people talk about beauty as having a tinge of sadness to it because it fades. You see a beautiful woman, they start to get old. A good-looking guy starts to get old. You see a landscape that diminishes. You see a sunset that disappears. There's a tweak of sadness in your heart because of its lack of permanence, because it can't fully be grasped. So somewhere there's this idea that permanence becomes true permanence. And then there's this idea that C.S. Lewis in the Screwtape Letters talks about different levels of jokes or humor.
Yeah.
And everything down from like the bawdy humor that isn't really clever, that is just like an excuse to joke about sex.
It's crass, yeah.
And then all the way through these different levels, like the joke proper, he calls it, that actually takes some work and is actually hard to create. And then at the highest end, he talks about joy. And he says, joy is what it is to see couples that have known each other a long time at the start of a vacation.
Yeah.
They get together, and there is the
joy is seeing Dan Elliott talk about his wife.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's like,
and in those cases, there is no actual excuses needed for laughter.
Yeah,
just the experience itself. Anything can produce laughter.
Yeah,
because it's people that love each other that are starting a journey together. So, like again, those are little elements that we get to see, little glimpses of how God paints eternity.
Yeah,
it's like a husband beginning a marriage and planning for that and finally being united with his bride. It's like couples away on an adventure. It's the families that are now split by long distances together in one place at the same time. Like those are all little glimpses of like what God has planned for those that love him.
Well, that leads us to the last question that I have here, which is, what are the everyday implications of being so loved by God? And we've already started to touch on a lot of this, and that he sent his son and that we're born of the Spirit. And how might this shape our response to God when we fail or have doubts?
This is actually, okay, so this is actually perfect because I actually had a whole section planned that I just removed.
Okay.
And it was centered around Les Miserables, which is a very famous book, or a famous book and a more famous musical. So it's like...
And an okay movie.
Yeah,
a pretty good movie.
The musical version was pretty good. So the story is that Jean Valjean is a poor man who is arrested for stealing a loaf of bread and thrown into jail for years for this crime.
Yeah.
And in it builds this deep resentment to the world because of the injustice of being hungry and taking bread and being punished. So he actually comes out saying, I now see the world, or the author says of him, Jean Valjean came out seeing the world as a enemy that needed to be defeated.
Yeah.
Seeing it as like a thing that had to be conquered. And so as he's traveling and trying to get his life, back on track, get enough to survive, he ends up staying with a priest, a bishop.
Yeah.
And the bishop feeds him and cares for him. and gives him a place to sleep because he's poor and in need. And in the middle of the night, he wakes up and he steals most of the silver in the house, puts it in a bag and leaves. And then he's halfway, half a mile down the road when he's arrested by some gendarmes and brought back to the bishop. And the gendarme says to the bishop, see, I caught this man. I've saved your silver. Or actually, no, he doesn't mention this. So he says, I've brought him back to you. And the bishop says to the gendarme, thank you for bringing him back to me. And then he says to Jean Valjean, why did you rush off so quickly? You forgot I gave you the candlesticks as well. And all the while, one of the brilliant comic moments is that you can see the bishop's wife, who is clearly not super excited about poverty in the way that he is, kind of like, what are you doing, you idiot?
All we have is the candlesticks.
I told you, don't give away stuff. Yeah. She's super mad that he even welcomed this guy in, and the bishop's like, I don't want to talk about it. And so the bishop hands over the candlesticks and the gendarmes leave. And then the bishop says to him, I've bought your soul for God. Now you must learn to become a good man. The bishop acts as almost like a picture of what God has done. He's purchased everything. It's he acts as this
so why
this example of God.
Yeah.
And then as Jean Valjean leaves and goes about building this life, he carries with him this sense of this action means something. The life I live now has to reflect the action.
Yeah, so I'm not living a life in jail because of an extreme act of kindness and mercy.
Yeah. I have been, my forgiveness has been bought by an action that cost something. And now I must go and live a different life. Like that, I wonder if I may actually have the quotes separately. Because this story just stood out to me as a way of reappreciating. Oh, is it going to come up? No, I wonder if we're just not. Oh, that's because it's in Pages. Where is Pages?
Huh. Yeah, this is...
Oh, yeah, here we go. Here's the first quote. During the years of suffering, he reached the conclusion that life was war in which he was one of the defeated. Hatred was his only weapon, and he resolved to sharpen it in prison and carry it with him wherever he left. That was how he would defeat the world that was at war with him. And then at the end, it was that which was certain, that which he did not doubt, that which was no longer, that he was no longer the same man, that everything about him was changed, that it was no longer in his power to make it as though the bishop had not spoken to him and not touched him.
Wow.
So somewhere for us, it seems like with the bishop playing this role of God to a degree in Les Miserables, or a picture of what God is like, we actually, and Paul says this explicitly, you are no longer your own. You were bought with a price. Yeah. So our specific actions are reflective of what God has done for us. And so now when we end up in places of doubt or difficulty, we have a choice. Do I continue to act in the belief that God has done something and continue on that journey? Or is this now a excuse for me to just do whatever I want? Because I actually think
so. Even the doubt is a denial of the love of God, in one sense. Because if I think, oh, I'm no good for nothing.
Yeah,
it's actually undermining the gift.
Well, I think this
and the giver,
and this is where intellectual doubt versus self-worth doubt obviously operate in different ways. Okay. Intellectual doubt, I tend to think, is uncontrollable. And in intellectual doubt, you can just continue to say, "I'm going to live my life as though God has done what I once believed He had done."
Yeah.
Or often believe, and depending on how that doubt works for you, maybe it's a permanent state that you've experienced for years. Maybe it's an in and out state. So if you feel like I've been in this space of doubt for a year or two, and I'm almost living what I sometimes call a sociological faith. I still believe the church is good. I still believe faith is good. I'm just struggling with it intellectually.
Yeah.
Then the invite is to continue to live as though what God has done is real, and you may struggle intellectually, but you continue to live as though God has done everything you once believed He'd done. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like in that sense, you live choosing to believe what God did for you in the light. When you believe that experience,
I experienced that myself when I went through a season of deconstruction, if for lack of a better term. And I remember saying to the Spirit specifically, like, if it's your job to keep me in the faith, then you're going to have to do some work, because I need to do some exploring of other faith traditions and just confirm that my faith is grounded. And I actually had that thought, like, does that mean I should just explore every opportunity of existence?
Sure.
And I was like, no, because I've actually vetted the way of Jesus enough to know that it's a better way of living, even if I don't believe it in the end. So I was like, I'm just going to stay the course because of how I try and show up. Like, try and be nice, try to continue to engage relationships, try whatever, rather than like go become an alcoholic or whatever. I don't know, whatever it may be that I could have tried, or sleep around, or what, who knows, that you could try as a hedonistic model. And it was some of that where I was like, I'm actually going to go ahead and continue to live with its true, because right now the evidence is that it is. But I need, for peace of mind, my mind to be allowed to wander into other faith traditions to reconfirm it.
And this idea was birthed for me by a conversation I had. It was an online thing, actually, where someone said, I am struggling with my spiritual faith right now. So I am what I would call a sociological Christian. But the reason I'm in church and present is because I want to give my kids the best opportunity to be both sociological believers and spiritual believers. And I long and hope for the one day where I might return and feel like I belong in that spiritual realm as well. So this is what it is for a person to go through that deconstruction and say, if God wants to find me, He will find me present in church with all of the people that believe in Him, which is actually a beautiful decision in lots of ways.
It is. Really, and interestingly, like in my story that I just told you, like, my conclusion after the season of 6-9 months or almost a year of exploration is I just was even more confident than ever that the way of Jesus was the best way of being human. So
I think then on the other hand, there's that sense of like lack of self-worth that says, if it's honest, and this is why this type of doubt is something to be repented of, I think. To use that language. And I have had to myself in different seasons of life, and I think you have said the same thing. That level of doubt says, I believe more my feelings about myself than I believe what God says about me. So it says that my feelings, my sense of God's distance, my sense of God's like my own failures and my own, like that sense of like, I've shared before that beautiful Charlotte Rossetti post prayer, where she says, when you find yourself weary of self. And I've definitely been in that space plenty of times. The worst part of that space is you get to a point of saying, I believe what I think about me ranks is greater than what God says about me. And that has to be repented of. You have to, your feelings may not change, but I think you actually have to approach that from the perspective of what I believe about me is wrong. And I repent, I turn around and choose to believe what you say about me. You have this sort of cheeky, like playful statement that you'll throw into a message occasionally where you're like, oh, I know this about me because I spend a lot of time with me. It's as bad as you could imagine. And you say, and people chuckle, but there's also like this, they chuckle because they are familiar with that. That's humor. Like humor is when you sort of say something that other people feel but don't often acknowledge out loud. And so we all kind of chuckle, but then you're like, no, that's actually a feeling that people have. It's like spending time with me is the worst. So that intellectual doubt versus that like self-worth doubt.
Interesting.
Seem to require different pathways. and invite us into different spaces.
All right. Well, as we come to close the show, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to tie all this together and tie it up with a bow and say, what's the bottom line of this, of John 3:16? The familiarity breeds unfamiliarity. The gift and the giver concept. Why are they both important? And this, how does the love affect our everyday lives?
Yeah. So I think the bottom line, as I looked at it, was one, acknowledging that we have a temptation to overfocus on the gift, and was to make sure you don't miss the giver in the gift. So actually, some of that is a practice of thankfulness, of gratitude, of acknowledging the gift, but actually acknowledging, God, you were the one that gave the gift at incredible cost to yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing what it might entail, you chose to make a people, and you chose to redeem that people, and I am one of those redeemed.
Yeah.
And so actually focusing on that journey of thankfulness seems to be a key element for that. And I think some people do that really well. And I think there's some songs that lead you into that practice, some elements of scripture. That's what Paul seems to do all the time. He always seems to start. Someone said to me once in Hebrew, and I don't know Hebrew well enough to know how this functions. Like I'm able to work with it, like on a root language level. But they said in Hebrew, God is never the object of a sentence. He's always the subject of a sentence. God is always first. The sentence is always about God, and other things come second. So it's never like it's never like salvation was provided by God. It's always God is the provider of salvation.
Yeah.
Like God always comes first in a sentence. Because he's the thing that
he is salvation.
And he's the person that requires our chief focus and honor and respect.
Yeah.
So I think I have experienced the worst seasons of my life when I have focused on the gift and what I am doing to help people experience that gift. Like I have definitely had seasons of life in ministry where I have had God say to me, son, you're doing this without me right now.
Yeah.
Like right now, I am just the object, not the subject. I am the second thing, not the first thing. Like actually, if you want to do this thing in a way that's transformative for people, that has to come from you and I being closer together than the work of preaching, than the managing of a staff or a organization. Like if you want that thing to be rich, both for you and for others, it's going to require us to be in complete sync with each other.
Yeah.
And I think I've shared before, like the seasons that's been worked through have been sometimes like out on a walk where it's just been a picture of God and I walking together, and I'm a couple of steps ahead.
Yeah.
Like, and I've actually slowed down to just, have this sense of, no, we're aligned. Like where would you like us to go next? It's been there in seasons of me saying, I actually don't know if I want to keep doing this after like maybe weeks of preaching in a row, or just like, oh my goodness, why do I do this to myself?
Yeah.
And have actually those been moments where God says like, okay, like, yeah, but you feel like that way now because you're muscling through this.
Yeah. I felt compelled last night in the emotionally healthy spirituality class to craft a little sentence. Like during the final reflection time, I wrote this little sentence that I shared with the class that kind of sits in all of the same vein. Because we were talking about David and how he has this deep identity that's like his identity is anchored in his relationship with God. And so I stood up at the end of the class and I just said, who you are when in relationship with God, who you are is sufficient, is sufficient for the moment that you're facing.
Yeah.
So, and then I just stopped and looked around the room and let it be silent for about 30 seconds. And then I said it again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that, it's that moment where you see like relationship with him makes all the moments bearable. It makes many moments more beautiful. It's the point of it all.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love that.
Interesting.
It's beautiful.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully you like the new format of us actually knowing what we're going to talk about a little bit. Yeah. And we will see you next week. Well, actually, yes, I think we might see you next week. We have a guest preacher, an amazing preacher for that following week.
Yeah, we do.
But collaborating and stuff will remotely, and we'll see. There's a chance we might not